Hello, this here is my modular synthesizer, and I realized that it's been quite some time since I did a video about it. So today's video I'm just going to talk about my particular modular. I'm going to start up here at the top left and just go module by module and work my way all the way down to the bottom right and tell you about each module and why I chose that module. This is not an overview of modular, but there are plenty of those out there, so if that's what you're curious about, do a search for that, because I'm just going to tell you about what I chose. So I've been working on modular for a couple years, and obviously you can make anything you want based on my workflow. These are the modules that I chose. So starting here, we have the Chaos Devices Selastopol. Very cool module. I use this to get audio in and out, well, mainly in to the Eurorack, but you can also send it out if you're trying to send it through an effects loop. So it has an in and an out jack down here, as you can see, with levels on both. So what you can do is you can take the modular level, you can knock it down to pedal level, then you can take the pedal level, bring it back up to modular level to allow you to run modular things through your effects pedals, but you can also use it to import audio like, say, a guitar. Additionally, it has an envelope follower and gate comparator section up here, so you can actually use something like a guitar to actually control other things in the modular, which is actually really neat. Very cool module. Next to that, we have the Make Noise Phono Gene, essentially like a tape looper. Again, a very cool module. They have a newer one now called the Morphogene. I'm sure many people are familiar with that. I constantly go back and forth as to whether I should update to the Morphogene. I love a few features about it, but this one just has this cool glitchiness that the Morphogene does not. The Morphogene is like too clean. And I would miss that, I think. So I've kept the Phono Gene around. Someday, you never know. Next is the Bacimalis Ateritos Alter. This is generally considered, this is from Noise Engineering, by the way. This is generally considered a percussion module. But the thing that I like about it is you can use it as an entire synth voice. It has 1 volt per octave in, has an envelope, has a built-in VCA and all of that. And so you can actually use it to just create sequences or whatever. So next to that is the Quantum Rainbow from Steady State Fate. Very cool module. It's just analog noise, that's it. And I love analog noise. And this has like all of them. You've got white noise, pink noise, you name it, all the way down to quantized at the bottom. Very cool module. Very one-trick pony. I mean, it's just a noise generator, but it's so good at what it does and all analog. Next to that, we have the Pittsburgh Waveform. This was actually my first module ever. My very first modular synth module was this, and I love it. Very cool, beefy analog oscillator. Pittsburgh uses a blade wave, which is kind of unique to them. Very cool thing. Just a really neat module. I love it. And then next to that is my Erika Black Wavetable VCO. This is, again, a very cool oscillator. It has, you cycle through the wavetables here. You can do that with control voltage as well. And then that changes the wavetable, and this changes within the wavetable, morphs through the various settings of the wavetable. It's just an incredibly cool digital oscillator. I love it. Next to that, the best utility ever, the Erogenous Tones Levitate. I absolutely love this. I did a separate video just about this module because it is so cool. It is a mixer, but it can be 2 mixers. It can also be 8 independent attenuators. It can be offset generators or inverters of voltage. It can do so many things. It's such a powerhouse, and I just love this module, and I feel like it doesn't get enough credit. Next to that, the Tango Quartet. That's our VCA, because as everybody says, you can never have too many VCAs. Down to the next row. For starters here, we have the Erika MIDI to clock module. This is a very cool module. It actually will take a MIDI signal, extract the clock, and then put it into Euro clock, so you can use it to clock other things in the Eurorack, but it's also reversible. I did a video just on this one as well. So you can take a clock signal out of the Eurorack and sync it to MIDI gear. So if you have a Eurorack patch already built and you want to sync a drum machine, no problem, or vice versa. No problem. This is just a powerhouse module. So cool for integrating with the outside world. And when you push it, you get a nice little light show from maybe, there we go, from all of the different divisors and multipliers that it has built in. But I take it on over to Pamela's Workout, where you can get about a bazillion different combinations. I'm basically using this as a clock divider in this particular setup because I've got the master clock coming from MIDI, but it doesn't have to be that way. You could do it the opposite way too. Next to that, we have our Synthetech Quadrangle. That is a quad envelope generator, and boy, do I love this thing. It's so cool. And all you have to do is just flip any one of these, and you get the gates going. And as you can see, they will just loop forever. They'll just keep going until you hit the stop, and it'll loop one more time and stop. Or maybe not. Oh, because I hit it to continue, my bad. Now it'll stop. Bam, there we go, sorry about that. But this is just such a cool envelope generator, I love it. Next to that, we've got our Nanorand, which is a random module. It does random LFOs, it does stepped random, smooth random, you name it. Very cool random module. This also has a digital noise generator and a sample and hold built in if you want that. But typically I would go up to here for noise. Next to that, we've got our Chaos Devices Batumi, my favorite LFO module. So cool. It can do so many different things in free mode here. It's also got these various modes where they're related to each other. So, you know, you can do various things where you can change the speed of one and how they play together. So you can see this is kind of a sequential one where the LFOs kind of go in sequential order. Very cool. It has a lot of different options. Next to that, the Sara VCF from dinsync. This is such a cool VCF, and I feel like it's super underappreciated. I probably need to do a video just on this module. It is two parallel filters. So you've got down here, you've got your low pass, band pass, and high pass out on both sides. Plus you also have a notch pass for both sides, and it just works as two individual filters. But what's cool, the magic of it, is this knob right here. And what happens is with this knob in the middle like this, these are both notch outputs. But if you turn this knob all the way this way, this becomes a high pass output, and this becomes a low pass output. And if you turn it all the way this way, the opposite, and then anywhere in between gets you some form of new filter that we haven't even come up with yet. But basically, it's also normaled. The output, notch output, is normal to this input, so you can plug in one input and get a series filter as well. There's like a million combinations what you can do with this thing, plus it's self-resonant. So you can use it as a sound source as well. Very cool filter, very underappreciated, I feel. Next to that, we've got our chronoblob delay from All Right Devices. Very cool module. I got this simply because it's syncable. It's one of the few delay modules that you can sync to a clock, which is just a wonderful feature. But it has this tape and standard delay modes, which just I think are wonderful and can get all kinds of cool glitchy effects. Next to that, you see the power supply for this particular case. It's an Arrow ER150. Very powerful, buffered, very cool power supply. I love it. It also has the, this is actually pretty cool. You can actually check all your rails, so you don't have to rely on something like Modular Grid. You can just check the rail right there on the meter. Let's go down to our first row here, our bottom row. We start with the Dupfer A177-2. This is a foot controller module. A lot of people think it's a mult. It's not a mult. It's a foot controller module. This allows you to use a expression pedal and a foot switch with your modular to do all kinds of things. I love this thing because you can do simple stuff like if you're playing guitar and you're playing it into the Phono gene up here, you can plug a foot switch in down here, and you can take your foot switch out and plug it into your toggle for record on and off, and you can control that with your feet, so you don't have to take your hands off the guitar. Very cool. Next to that, we've got our Varigate 4 from Moleco. Super cool sequencer, so immediate, does so many different things. I love this thing. You know, again, very, very cool module. Next to that, we've got our Dupfer A151 sequential switch, another really cool module. It can go from 1, 2, or 3 states. Very, very cool, very, very useful. Because of the way that it's structured, you can use it as a 4-in, 1-out, or a 1-in, 4-out. A lot of different options. Another thing that's kind of fun, if you have modulation and you want to just not have the modulation hit so much, you could go to like your 2-state, and then you could plug this out to wherever you want the modulation to go, and then just leave this one empty, and then your modulation only happens 50% of the time, or 33% of the time, or 25% of the time, depending on how you do it. Just one other way to use it. It's got a lot of different uses. I love this sequential switch. Next to that, the Erika Fusion ring modulator. Another module I feel is very overlooked. I probably need to do a video on this one as well. Just because even though it's a ring modulator, and it does some really cool, just rusty, greasy, you know, destructive ring sounds with that tube in there. But also it can just be used as a saturation module. You can just plug one source into it and one out, and you don't even need the carrier. And you can just actually use it to color the sound as well with the tube and get some really cool tube grid out of it. So it's actually a very useful module. Next to that, we've got the tip-top fold processor, another very nifty little module. It's a wave folder. You've got your various stages of wave folding here, which is voltage controllable, as well as your symmetry, which is voltage controllable. But then additionally, it has a sub audio generator here. And so you've got a sub out, and this is the original signal 1 octave down, 2 octave down, and 3 octave down, which are all controllable. So you can get some really cool stuff out of that. It's great for like plugging in an external source, like say a guitar or something. You can take it into the fold processor and just really mangle it. Next to that, we see our resonant our random source resonant equalizer. Very, very, very cool module. Essentially a fixed filter bank on this side, but it also has the comb outs, and it has a feedback circuit, which is very nice. In the middle position, it functions just like a fixed filter bank. If you go up here, you get some crazy feedback, and down here you get inverted feedback. Has 2 ins as well, so it can work somewhat as a mixer, and it has 2 outs, so you can send it to different destinations. Very, very cool module. Love it to death. Next to that, we have Typhoon. Now, if you've ever used Clouds, Clouds is a really cool module, but if you've ever used it, you know the interface is awful. This fixes that. This is Clouds with an interface that isn't terrible. Don't know how else to say it. It has sliders. You can see everything is accessible here. You have all your knobs are accessible. You have different, you don't have to use one button to switch from everything. You've got different buttons to switch from your time and your bank and all of that. Still has all the same functions like the freeze. It has both an in mute and an out mute, which is fantastic. So you can use the in mute if you want it to still be processed, or the out mute if you just need to kill it. Trigger button as well. Also gives you access to the built-in VCA, which is kind of neat. Plus voltage control over everything that Clouds is of course famous for. Like, this is how Clouds should have been out of the box. I love this so much more than Clouds. It just, you know, and then plus it has the alternate firmware on here, so you have 8 modes instead of 4. So that's really cool. So this is a very, very neat module. And then finally we have our WMD Pro output. I did a video about this module as well, but I love this thing because it takes modular level and it knocks it down to everything you need. You can see there it's labeled. There is your +4. Up here is your -10, as you can see. And then you also have your headphone out. It just knocks everything right to the levels that you need it immediately. So cool. Love this module. So, looking over it again, here we go. So this is the current state of the Eurorack after several years, and this works very well for me. You know, everybody's modular synth is going to be different. That's kind of the beauty of modular synth, is everybody gets to make it different. But after me working it into my workflow, I'm very pleased with this setup. I think it really works well. And overall, you see the Nono Lander case. I was one of the Kickstarter backers for this. Very cool case. And there we go. So there's an update video on the Eurorack.